Hi, I'm here today with Curtis Anderson with Realty Executives Tucson Elite. Curtis Anderson's been in the business for quite some time. We're going to talk with him a little bit about what it is that he's done to bring the business to where it is today. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the concerns that he's had and some of the weaknesses and strengths he's experienced. And so I think he's really going to be able to teach us all a lot. So Curtis, thanks for coming along. We really appreciate you helping us out here.
Thank you.
So I guess the first part, I think a lot of the people would be concerned or curious about is, how long have you been in real estate?
I'm coming up on 16 years in
16
March.
years. No kidding. Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like that's a big number.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. How did you get into the real estate business anyway?
Actually, I was hired as an assistant to an agent that was selling a lot of real estate and needed help back in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually his neighbor.
No kidding.
So I did a lot of typing. I worked for a typing store, and he needed somebody that could use a computer and type quickly. And the next thing I knew, I was in real estate school, and then he hired me full time as his assistant.
So how is it that he came to know? You mentioned that he was your neighbor, and that he was actually looking for somebody to help him out with some of the administrative stuff. But I mean, why is it that he chose, you versus somebody who was an agent or maybe an assistant to somebody else? I mean, why you?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know if I've ever actually asked him that question, but I think that it might have just been an attitude thing. I mean, I think he was looking for somebody that didn't have experience. He just wanted somebody that wanted to go out there and learn real estate and to help him continue to make sales.
Did he ever have any kind of thoughts that maybe you'd get into the business yourself and sell real estate as well? Was that like the whole plan or no?
I don't know that he really had a plan per se, or that he had concerns about me, leaving as an assistant. So I think that he was able to just focus on what he was going to be able to create, having somebody like me assist him on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so this guy was a top producer. That was here in Tucson or somewhere else?
Here in Tucson.
Okay, so he was a top producer here in town. He was trying to build his team, needing a lot of help. He found you. You were unlicensed at the time. Said, hey, look, can you help me out with some of this administrative stuff? Eventually, you went into real estate school and then became licensed, and you were working for him at the same time. Is that right?
Exactly.
Wow.
By the time I got done with real estate school, he actually hired me full time.
Oh, okay.
I quit my job, and we started from there.
Okay, so you were selling. I'm sorry, you were doing the print shop still, part time while you were helping him with his paperwork. You went to school part time, and then once you graduated, he just said, "Hey, look, I'm going to hire you full time." And that's where it all started for you.
Yep, that's where it started.
Okay, good deal.
Yep.
And so then how long were you an assistant with him?
I worked for him for 9 years.
9 years, wow. Okay.
And that role turned into me running the office and really just being responsible for every aspect of the business, except for actually driving around buyers, So that's about the only thing that I didn't do as far as running the business.
Okay, and so when you were actually working for him after about 9 years, or after at some point, he said, hey, look, I want you to take over the office itself, handle the day-to-day operations. And about how many people do you suppose you were in charge of at that time?
Well, by about 2005, we had 3 other office staff and probably 4 agents that worked directly with buyers and sellers, including him.
Were you in charge of those buyer's agents as well?
I wasn't in charge of them per se. It was more of I just dealt with anything that they needed assistance with, be it writing a contract and working through special issues, dealing with repair, inspection issues, and then as well as assisting with the listings and making sure that all of our sellers were getting what they need. And then, the bulk of my day was actually specifically managing our escrows and working through all of our contracts. So every contract that was ever written for probably about 5 years, I handled almost from start to finish.
No kidding. And so at the height of that, when you were getting ready to leave, about how many transactions do you suppose that agent was doing with those agents?
We were closing I think, towards about 120 transactions a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was between how many agents? 4 or 5 active, like, selling agents, or what?
Yeah, that would be probably 5 sales agents.
Wow.
And the other 3 or 4 of us were support.
Okay. All right.
Basically.
And so you were overseeing a lot of the questions that they may have. So they would probably go to you first, as opposed to going to the main agent. They would come to you, hey, look, I got a problem, and then you would go ahead and be able to help them because you'd have experience in those things already.
Yeah, I literally handled 800 transactions in an 8-9 year period there during this process.
Okay.
So I was really the go-to guy for everything, just because I had been in the middle and dealt with every single transaction. So from start to finish.
So it would be fair to say that you've seen pretty much everything under the sun when it comes to real estate, I would imagine. I mean, practically any problem, you've seen probably it or a variant of it a couple times already, I would imagine.
Yeah, that would be accurate. I mean, it's a lot of transactions. I don't know that most realtors in their entire career are actually going to be involved with, more than 500 transactions. I mean, that's a good career. So I was really fortunate to be able to have all of that knowledge and to gain all that experience, because that allows me to handle the day-to-day operations of real estate smoothly.
Okay. And so now fast forward, all right, you've gone from being, a fellow who's been in copywriting and typewriting and administrative type of stuff. You've gone in and got your bones, so to speak, in terms of real estate. You learned the business from the ground up. You saw tons of agents go back and forth in and out of that team, I would imagine, right?
Right.
Okay. And so how many agents do you suppose that the main agent had gone through, in order to, I mean, did you see a lot of agents kind of come and go, or?
No, we didn't have a high turnover
Okay.
back in that time. It was the team concept was relatively new then. So there really wasn't a lot of turnover, and but there's always, when you have 10 people working together, there's always one person, moving on to something else or moving out of state and
Okay.
hire somebody new, and that's just part of doing business when you have a business with 10 people.
Okay. And so you would come, you'd be very accustomed to seeing people kind of, learning the business, starting from scratch.
Oh yeah.
Getting successful. And for one reason or another, either they leave, drop out of the business, move someplace else, go on their own. But for the most part, this agent was really good about retention. Is that right?
Yeah. There wasn't a turnover issue.
Okay.
At that time at all. So
Okay.
it really worked well.
All right. Well, that's good. And so now in 2012, January, you're finding yourself, starting off on your own. And that's a big jump. I mean, what kind of brought you to this place to say, I want to be on my own?
Well, originally when I went out on my own, it was just a function of, really just wanting to be my own person, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So now, well, it's just a matter of being able to choose my own destiny from
Okay.
day to day, from week to week, month to month.
Right.
And I really enjoy, selling real estate, and I enjoy working with other people and creating my own team.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in 2012 is working with other agents.
Mm-hmm.
And creating a business not only for myself, but being able to expand their knowledge and their sales abilities.
Okay. And so now, as you started this out, you've had some experience, I know from our personal experience, you've had some experience selling properties on your own,
Mm-hmm.
Prior to, I should say, after being an agent, working as an assistant for quite some time.
Right.
When you've been selling, what sort of, kind of give me an idea. You've been on your own without a team,
Mm-hmm.
just selling as a single agent. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have an idea or basic idea of how many transactions you sort of figure you do? Again, admittedly, it's not a full amount of time, but on average, what would you say? Or do you do it by volume, or how do you count?
I count transactions.
Okay.
So probably 30 is about a number that I would be.
That's a big number.
Yeah, as when I had my own team and did that kind of thing, our numbers were in the 60s and stuff like that. But as far as what I'll be doing on my own and what I've done being a part of those teams, it would be about 30 transactions.
Right. Well, that's a huge number when you think about the average agent in Tucson sells about 4 homes per year. I think that's about the average in the United States as well. And you're doing, 7 times that, easy. And you're doing it, pretty much on command.
Yeah, handling the transactions has been such a second nature thing for me because of the 9 years that I had, that doesn't get in my way when it comes to going out and making sales.
Okay.
So that aspect of it for me is a simple part of the business, and the thing that I really had to overcome for myself was really getting out there as an agent, and getting in front of people.
Right.
Which was something that I didn't do a lot of, when I was assisting and stuff like that, was actually getting face to face like this with a seller and asking him to go ahead and sign the contract.
Okay, so for you, just to make sure I'm understanding you right, you'd been so long in the back office, so to speak, making sure that the people were taken care of, and maybe the seller conversations that you had were over the phone, making sure they were okay and all that. But when it came down to being face to face, talking about listing and selling, you didn't have a whole lot of experience doing that.
No, I mean, it's a completely different animal. I mean, granted, I was in real estate and claimed to sell real estate. The reality is that was merely a support role, and it's a completely different aspect of selling real estate to actually go out and get contracts signed.
Was it scary for you?
Yeah.
I imagine it's scary for me.
It definitely was. I'm really comfortable in my office, and I can get everything done from my chair.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I really can't get done is get contracts signed that way.
Right.
At least not effectively.
Okay. And so now you've had to kind of step out of this comfort zone and get where you're comfortable face to face with people so you can actually get contracts signed and do business. Wow. Okay. And so now on average, we hear horror stories of real estate agents working 7 or 8 days a week. About how many days or hours do you work a week, do you suppose?
I'm consistently working 50 hours a week.
Okay.
I claim to work 5.5 days.
Right.
And,
okay.
And that's just basically because I work Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
And then I end up, missing a day from here, a Saturday weekend gone and stuff like that. So I just show up every day. It's a job for me.
Right.
And so 50 hours a week.
And so now you're married.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is your wife?
Yes.
Okay. How many kids you got?
2.
2. Oh my God.
Twins that are going to be 12 in February.
No kidding.
So 6th grade, we have a boy and a girl, and they are amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got to make sure you spend time at home, I would think. Tresta probably wants to make sure that you don't make real estate your life. So I would imagine you probably have to work off a pretty strict schedule to make sure you get your things done.
Yeah, schedule is really key for real estate. One aspect is that it does allow me the freedom to be with the kids,
right,
when I want to.
Right.
But it also can allow me the freedom to do a lot of things outside of real estate. So that's a really big plus. And it makes me focus my time when I am selling real estate.
Okay.
So when I am in the office, I'm really attentive to what I'm doing, and really structure my time so that it's used as effective as possible to get the most out of my day.
It's interesting you should say that because, you said something I thought that was interesting about freedom. I remember someone telling me one time that their schedule brought them freedom. It was the fact that they knew they had to come in at a particular time, that they had to do this activity, then this activity, then this activity, and they could plan it all out and then go home. It actually brought them freedom because they knew that when they got off, they were off and they could do whatever they wanted with their families. I mean, what sort of thoughts do you have about that?
There's a lot of truth to that. And, my day is really easy when I just open my planner or look at my phone, which I'm adapting to now. But when I look at my schedule, I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
There's not a lot of confusion of what am I going to do today or how am I going to go about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So the schedule is key. For me, all that really matters is that I follow my schedule.
How do you stick to the schedule? I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I know it's a hell of a thing because you're sitting here trying to distractions come up. Life gets in the way, and you're always trying to battle that. At least I am. I mean, how do you handle, the distractions, the escrow that's getting ready to close, and the termite report hasn't been turned in, or this buyer calls up and they're sweating about how come the home inspection's scheduled at 4 as opposed to 2 or whatever. How do you handle those sorts of things?
That's a great question. The only thing that comes to mind is a term that I use, which is called complete work. And basically, I schedule myself the time necessary to make sure that everything is being taken care of. Emergencies don't actually pop up that often. So with proper scheduling, you really don't have a lot of things that get in the way. Now, we are in real estate, and things happen from time to time, and that's part of the plus and minus of this industry.
Right.
Is that we do have the freedom to be able to just stop what we're doing in one capacity to tackle a problem or whatever. That's just the nature of the business. Mm-hmm. So it's just part of the day-to-day. If you're trying to avoid that, you can only do so much. So you just have to accept that those things are going to happen.
But would you say, by and large, what I'm hearing you say is that, you sort of look at it like, look, these are exceptions, not the rule.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and what we as real estate agents try to do is make the rule the exception.
Well, as a real estate agent, I don't have a boss.
Mm-hmm.
My boss is me, which can be very dangerous, because I can think of all sorts of fun things to do outside of going out and producing in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I've always been able to just follow my schedule, because I'm committed to the things that I want to achieve in real estate, and that's what it really just boils down to, is that commitment.
And it's funny you should mention that, because that I guess causes me to question. You had mentioned earlier that currently you're working on your own. Mm-hmm. Do you have an idea? I thought you mentioned something about building a team.
Yes.
So, when are you thinking that you might need to hire an assistant or whatever to kind of help along with that paperwork? Another Curtis Anderson, from the typewriter place. Yeah. At what point do you sort of feel like you need to do that, if at all?
Really, the sooner the better is when I'll need an assistant. Basically, once you get to a certain amount of transactions and a certain amount of listings, and as soon as you start feeling pressure on dealing with those things is when I'm going to get an assistant. For me, I anticipate that would be in the next couple months.
Okay.
But it's hard to put a number on that. Like, if I've got 10 listings, do I need an assistant? Or if I have 10 escrows, do I need an assistant? But the answer really is just the sooner the better, because with a growing business, the sooner you get an assistant, the sooner I'll be able to go out into the field and generate more sales.
Okay. And so now, when you have started out, obviously you mentioned a minute ago you left being an assistant, went out on your own, and there's a lot of people who are watching who have, obviously faced that challenge where they're new in the business, they're starting out, and they're having challenges of their own. And it's nice to know what kind of problems, other people have had. And so as you've grown, obviously you knew a lot about the paperwork and the day-to-day operations, but when it got into the sales part of things, what were some of the things that you faced that were, some significant challenges?
Well, the challenges were understanding what it really takes to find buyers and sellers. The key for me with everything was the coaching that I was involved with. Mm-hmm. My coach led the way, mm-hmm. Is I guess the best way I can put that. So as much as my own mind told me what I wanted to do every day, with the coach that I had, my path was pretty clear as far as what was going to be necessary to actually sell. Mm-hmm. So I learned really quickly that basically I just have to get in action to go out there and sell real estate and stop, being concerned with, whatever I wanted to do that day. So having a coach in real estate is, key to the whole thing as well. And even today, I have a coach that I work with to keep me focused on what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, somebody from the outside looking in.
Right. So somebody that was maybe holding you accountable and maybe giving you some ideas about things that you didn't necessarily want to do, but would encourage you to do, and you're saying that that kind of helped you get over a lot of the problems that you originally had. Is that correct?
For sure.
Okay.
You know, because I was, I was me, and I was doing the things that I knew to do. So without having somebody else be able to look in at what I was doing to be able to assist me and guide me in the direction that I needed to go to create more sales, it made it work. It increased my business at a much faster rate than I would have just on my own.
So you sort of felt, just to kind of paraphrase, you sort of felt like you were maybe in a bubble, so to speak, where you had your own mind about the way things needed to be, and you were maybe not aware of other things that you could do, and then you got some extra help, somebody outside of your business, to say, hey, look, maybe you can do it this way. Hey, you need to do this. You need to try and get this so you can get more business. And you hired somebody professionally to do that.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, Michael Jordan has a coach.
Okay.
So he's maybe the greatest basketball player of all time. And he has a coach that helps guide him in what he does playing basketball.
But how do you explain that when you have, say, for example, Michael Jordan? His coach, and I'm aware of that, he's a short guy and he's pretty old. How do you explain somebody who doesn't play the game, who's obviously shorter than Michael Jordan, who maybe doesn't do it better than Michael, how can that little old guy coach Michael Jordan? How could a real estate agent expect someone who maybe doesn't or isn't currently in the real estate business to coach them? How do you explain the results there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that one of the answers to that question is that knowing how to sell real estate and being able to go and do it are two different things. The old phrase of those who can't do, teach. So the function of a coach isn't necessarily do they have a proven track record of millions of real estate sales. They have the knowledge and the ability to tell you what you need to know as the player on the court, so to speak,
right,
as the agent out there doing it, the new avenues that you need to look at or the areas that you need to elevate your performance.
Okay.
So they know the business, and they'd be able to look in at what you do and help you and guide you towards success.
Plus, it would seem like that person being outside of the business would be detached, and they might be able to spend more time finding new ways to help you, whereas you're so busy playing basketball, that's the only thing you can focus on. You can't focus on finding new ways, and that's why it's helpful to have somebody.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, the new ways, and then being in the business, it's an up and down kind of business. So to be able to have somebody that you said was detached from the situation, they're going to be able to bring you back to the focus that that you're supposed to have in this business to succeed.
Okay.
So
what sort of business do you specialize in now? I mean, obviously we've got buyers, listing agents, investment specialists, REO, short sales. Do you specialize in anything in particular?
I guess if there was an area that I've specialized in, it has been short sales.
Okay.
But I don't, particularly focus on that per se. Half of my business comes from buyers, and then the other half ends up being listings, and a lot of those are short sales.
Okay.
So
then that's because of the nature of the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. And so you don't particularly say, hey, I focus all my business in expireds, or I focus all my business, I'm a buyer's agent. You're just saying, hey, look, I'll take it from a bunch of different areas, and this is about half as sellers and half as buyers.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's a smart idea in the sense that a lot of people want to pigeonhole themselves into, certain things. I don't want to deal with listings, or I don't want to deal with buyers, and I think that's a smart idea for sure. And so now, as an agent yourself, if you're like me, you have certain strengths that you recognize in yourself, and then there's other things that you say, I'm not that good at. What sort of things do you suppose are your strengths, and even then your weaknesses?
Strengths, I guess. I think my commitment to showing up. When we talked about how many hours a week do I work, 50 hours, I do that consistently. So I really look at what I do as my job. So I'm, pretty consistent with coming in every day, doing what's necessary to go out there and do that. I think the other thing would be openness, is that I've been open to my coaching. So, and I've been open to the coaching that I get from interacting with other agents. So that is been a huge part of my success, I would say, is just the fact that I've had the ability and the opportunity actually to interact with a lot of other agents and really learn from the other people in the business. Mm-hmm. And then I think organization, I guess, would be the third thing I could think of. Is I've always been organized, and that might have just come from my 9 years of assisting and working with another agent and growing in that capacity. So just being really organized with all the paperwork and understanding what I need to do on a day-to-day basis.
What sort of things would you say are maybe not your strong suit?
Some of the things I've struggled with, I think, have just been the face-to-face interactions. I never really came from a place where I did a lot of face-to-face interaction and actual sales. I even today, I don't even, I know I'm a salesperson and that's what I do, but I still get a little nervous when I get face-to-face with people, and so that in itself has been probably the one thing that has changed, but it's definitely been one of the struggles I've had, is just getting outside of myself and being comfortable, face to face with other people.
Do you have an idea about what you're going to do to kind of help strengthen that, or is your thought maybe to, I don't know, offset it with more people, or maybe more quality people, or do you have some ideas about what you're going to do to kind of mitigate that weakness?
Well, I think I've overcome a lot of it, but
how did you do that?
Well, I forced myself to do the things that I was uncomfortable doing, and I did that because from my interactions with other agents and seeing, well, that's what it takes. That's what it takes in this industry, is you got to get out in front of people and talk about real estate and talk to them about selling their house and ask them to sign a contract.
Right.
And you might have to ask them twice.
Right.
They might say no the first time, and you ask again. And then between that and then of course my coach, being in coaching, it was, she saw it. My coach, Jody, was one I was thinking of in particular. For her it was really obvious, and so she just really pushed me to go outside of my comfort zone and get out there and just get in front of people, and so what I don't know that I even consider it necessarily a weakness today, but it is something that's there for me that I have to think about from time to time.
And so it's been a situation where when you had a particular struggle, like you said, it was something that you just had to go out and face. You just had to go do it. Had to go slay the dragon. I mean, like it or not, you got to go meet the people. Yeah. And you saw other agents and the success that they did, and you realized, this is what I need to do, and that's how you kind of, strengthened that area of your business. Is that right?
Well, and I really looked at the concept of fear, and I accepted it. And what I did is I went ahead and did what I needed to do, even though I was afraid to go do it.
Right.
So, a good example is coming in to do this interview. There was a little voice inside my head that said that, that's scary. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, I imagine that Tresta probably likes the fact that you come home with a paycheck every now and again. That's probably a good motivation too.
When it goes back to the word commitment, when you realize that you have to do things that might be outside of what you're used to in order to reach the goals that you're after, mm-hmm. then suddenly those things that you don't think that you want to do, or the things you're afraid of doing, they just fall to the wayside.
And speaking of that, you mentioned some goals and stuff. If you feel pretty comfortable with it, I mean, what do you see happening, for your business in the year 2012? What sort of things do you see happening for you?
Lots of big stuff. But first it starts with a solid foundation, for my business, and getting stable again and recreating my business. So I'm excited about that. from there, it's just building upon that foundation and just growing, and that's really key for everyone, is everybody is wherever they're at. You know, if last year I did 2 transactions, then that's where I need to grow from, and so growth is really what I'm looking at as far as what I'm going to be doing this year and the year after. And continued growth is really what business is all about.
Do you have any specific ideas or plans of things you're going to do to kind of grow? You get this growth that you're talking about? Do you have any specific ideas?
Well, outside of going out and selling real estate, listing properties and working with buyers, I'm also growing my team. So I'll be putting together other agents that are interested in working with me and having the training and coaching that I'm going to be doing in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about committing to my monthly goals. So, for example, this month, I set myself goals with how often I'm going to go out and look for new business, how many listings I'm going to take, and then I just put it in my schedule, to spend an hour a day making calls or making sure I get my lead follow-up in. And once all that stuff's been put into my schedule, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is just following my schedule.
And so essentially, from what I heard you just say, you took your year goal and you said, I'm not going to really necessarily focus so much on the year, but let me just focus on this month. Let me just get this month out of the way, and then I can focus on next month. It's kind of like the whole, eating the elephant thing. And you don't worry so much about the end. You're just trying to figure out the specific stuff you need to do today.
Yeah, looking at what I want to do for the year, I mean, it seems like a daunting task, and that's exactly what I've done. Is I've been able to break that down as to reach that goal by the end of 2012. Well, what do I need to do in January?
Okay.
So it made it really clear and makes it really easy, and then I can just spend this month focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the month, I'll look at what I did and I'll look at what I didn't do,
mm-hmm.
and then I can create what I'm going to do in February. Again, based on what my goals are for 2012.
I think that's important when you're saying that you take all of 2012 and you say, let me figure out just what I need to do this month, and then go ahead and hold myself accountable. If I don't get this particular goal, then that's how it's going to affect me in the end. If I need to get this goal, if I didn't meet what I said I needed to do, then I need to add that, or at least figure a way to get it next month or the month after.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is the factor of, maybe I won't hit all my goals in January, I can make up for it in February. But you can't go into it with that attitude. You really just have to look at your goal as, I look at my goals as commitments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't set goals like, oh geez, I'm going to sell, pie in the sky type of figures of what I wish I could do and hope that I do, and so I really take what I'm going to do and say, well, no, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm able to do that because I've done a lot of tracking of what I've done historically. So I'm able to look at how many listings will I take this month and be able to expand upon that to create all of that.
So in other words, you've found a system for yourself to go ahead and track your productivity, and then go ahead and translate your activity into that and say, okay, if I do this many calls or these many contacts or whatever it is, then I could reasonably expect this kind of production. And then with this kind of production, this is the end result I'll get. But if I don't do this particular activity, I won't get this, and then I won't get that. Exactly. So you've established a way to go ahead and handle that for yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, good deal. All right, I think you're right. It's that accountability with yourself, that commitment, like you said, and it also, something I learned from what you said was it's a lot of it is just simply commitment. It's not pie in the sky. It's realistic for you. You're saying, okay, based on what I've done in the past, I kind of feel like, I can get this done because I've done something like this in the past, and it's easier for you to sort of reconcile that in your head. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be extremely accurate. I mean, a goal, most of the time when I've set goals in the past, I haven't been able to outline how I'm going to achieve that.
Okay.
And the difference between a goal
and
a commitment is when you write down a commitment, you write down also what's going to occur, your outline of how that's going to actually happen.
Okay.
So it really just creates a lot of power around, you know, what I'm doing and what I'm going to be able to accomplish. And it's not like I'm just winging it and hoping and, you know, spending a lot of time in that area, where it's more, no, this is the outline of what I'm doing and how I'm going to actually do that.
And
the results
scale.
follow. Yeah, the results follow.
Okay, all right. So obviously, you know, we've got a lot of new agents here, Realty Executives, and as well as other people who are going to be able to see this. And they're newer agents, and you know, they're going to have obviously a lot of questions. And if they were going to sit here in my place and say, you know, hey, Curtis, tell me from the wisdom of the ages, you know, what is it that I need to know? Okay, what's the one thing that you could tell me that's going to help me grow my business? If there was only one thing that you had to boil all the 16 years down into one thing, what would be the wisdom from the ages that you would tell the newer agent to help them grow their business this year? If you had to boil it down to one.
Yeah, boy. Sum up everything into one sentence.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say two things. And the first off is to have some sort of coach in this industry. And that's just, I think without that, you can be wandering in this business. And what goes along with that is not just having one, but actually committing yourself to the actions that they prescribe to you. So with a coach and that committed action, you'll have success.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you, you know, Curtis, I really do appreciate you stopping by. I know that the audience does as well. And, you know, of course, if you if you're out on the internet and you happen to have any referrals for Tucson, Arizona, by all means, call Curtis Anderson here at the company. His phone number is 520-877-4940, and we'll go ahead and get the phone call to him. Just want to say thank you for your time. Appreciate all the good work that you've done, and especially stepping out of your box to help us out. So,
thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. You take care, and we'll look forward to seeing Kurt Stinson, Dan Beal, and we'll also be talking to Sandy Heath here in the near future as well. So thanks a lot. Take care, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
I had this little thought in my head.